So I checked out Ghost Wars. I really like supernatural stuff, dark, spooky stuff, and I like Vincent D'Onofrio a lot. I loved him in Daredevil. I liked him a lot in El Camino Christmas, very different role. So I thought I'd like this one. Now, I really didn't like it. Now, they throw so many supernatural elements. You have exorcism and possessed kids saying creepy things. You have birds or animals flying in weird patterns. You have maggots falling from the sky, falling from the ceiling. You have weird, a shadowy organization and corporation. They're doing experiments, weird science experiments. You can't leave the town. Someone tries to leave on a boat and they get turned around. So it's like the town is kind of quarantined in the sense you have an accident at the science facility and people have to be quarantined and some of them die. You have ghosts that not only are they're ghosts and this one guy who's a medium can see them, but the ghosts are causing people to hallucinate, and you have a bunch of hallucinations. And some of these things they throw in work, but most of them don't. One thing I liked, from the ceiling, they found all these rats, and it turned out the rats had got their tails tangled up, and when that happens, they all just run, but none of them can move, and they starve to death. So that image worked, and that was very creepy and unsettling, but a lot of the other stuff they threw in there just didn't work, and the visuals in this, it's really just visually not a nice show to look at. And in some shows it works because it's very dark and there's not a lot of light and visuals because it adds to this creepy ambiance and atmosphere. But in this show it doesn't have that. So one, it doesn't have this unsettling vibe where you're really imagining horrors that are much worse than what they could show on the screen. And then also there's no spectacle. The actual visuals they show, for instance, the exorcism, it looks silly. The ghost, the design of the ghost is really bad. It makes me realize why most of the times they don't actually show ghosts, because it looks very silly. So it neither works where you get these cool images or you're really put in a state of mind where you're imagining images on your own. And then, like I say, they're throwing so many different of these supernatural elements and also so many different storylines that they can't really keep track of them all, or at least they're not weaving them all together, at least not yet. So something gets introduced in episode 2 and then episode 3, 4, 5, you don't hear about it at all. So it just feels like it's very disconnected. Again, I'm only at episode 6, so maybe by the end of it, they'll brilliantly weave all these things together. But right now it just feels very scattershot, and they're different tones. The different storylines are such different tones that they're not going well together. They're clashing. So you have this medium, and at one point he helps someone contact his dead daughter, and it's a very emotional, kind of heartfelt moment, or at least I think it's meant to be. And then that tone clashes with, at one point, right after, a fridge starts chasing someone around the room, and it's just, that's kind of goofy, over the top. And then there's darker elements. Someone gets something, a ghost carves something into someone's chest, and it's those kind of darker elements. So you got all these different tones, and I don't really know which the show's trying to go for, or if it's trying to juggle them all, in which case I don't think it's working. And I can't help but feel I wish the show just focused on what I think is the strongest aspect of the show, when you have an isolated community and suddenly you have a supernatural element thrown in, and you see people in this isolation where you're completely removed from the outside world and you're in this self-contained bubble. One, people start to actually kind of go crazy and start imagining things and hallucinating. Two, people start to want to find someone to blame and kind of find a scapegoat, and someone who's a medium or says they have spiritual powers, easy scapegoat. And then also 3, people start to see the opportunity to maybe use this to their advantage. So you could see someone who maybe wanted to accuse someone of something, actually manipulating and trying to set it up so it seems like a ghost is accusing this person from beyond the grave. So a lot of interesting things there. I wish they just kind of focused on that, rather than, like I say, throwing in the corporation, doing the experiments, throwing in there's an earthquake, there's a bus crash, there's just so much going on. I feel like it's just getting diluted a bit. And last thing I'll say, I do think the acting is decent from most people involved. The biggest letdown for me, it has been Vincent D'Onofrio. So he's playing the pastor, and when he's doing the fire and brimstone, the fiery speeches from the pulpit, I think he's great. But when he does the more emotional stuff, which is something I've never seen him do. In El Camino Christmas, he was very funny as this corrupt sheriff. In Daredevil, he plays this kind of badass, this old school gentleman very well. When he's having his moments where he's actually having an emotional heart-to-heart with God, and like, why God, why? It comes across to me as very goofy and over the top and silly, and that's definitely not the tone he's going for. So, big disappointment for me. I can't really recommend this show as far as what I've seen. Again, maybe it might get better. I will probably keep watching it, and I might do another review if my opinion changes a lot. But as of right now, there's just so many better shows out there maybe if you're just a fan of, again, anything supernatural, because it does have a lot of different of these elements. So maybe if you like all these elements, that alone, but I don't think the execution is particularly good.